Hello, how are you doing today? We're going to invite you to come with us today on a uh, historic uh, journey back to 1862, 160 years ago, when the Battle of Richmond took place. We're here at the bottom of Big Hill where it all started. And I'm going to show you where we're at. We're at the bottom of Big Hill. Now, across the road where that kayak rental place is where that big old white house used to stand that my grandparents owned. And the day before the battle, and on August 28th, they would have marched north from Tennessee, and they took over that house and made it a Confederate hospital during the Civil War. And they had field hospitals in other places. But if you were someone of importance, they would have brought you back here to this White House where they had better equipment and things. And now I'm going to tell you the story of Captain Speck and Nurse May. The day before the battle, Captain Speck was here, and they were getting ready and making preparations for the men that they would bring back to this hospital, because they knew that they would have a lot of wounded people. And Captain Speck and Nurse May, they were unloading things and packing them into that house and getting beds ready, whatever they needed to do to make sure that they were ready for the battle the next day. And there were several times when Nurse May and Captain Speck, their eyes might have met, and they thought fondly of each other. And the next day, during the battle, Captain Speck was wounded, and they brought him back to this hospital. And Nurse May looked out, and she could see them bringing Captain Speck back to this house. And she said, "Lordy mighty, get him in here so we can work on him." And Nurse May worked really hard to bring Captain Speck back and to heal him, but it was to no avail, because both Captain Speck and Nurse May died in that house. And because their deaths were so tragic, and that their spirits became entombed in that house, and their spirits haunted that house for many, many years. Nurse May died of consumption, and Captain Speck, he died of whatever wounds he had. And that Civil War house, we believe a cannonball went through it, because part of the house had been repaired with ammo crates. Well, we're going to be driving down the road, and we're going to be going down the same path that they probably marched. But before I get on the road, I want to tell you about my ancestor, Andrew Jackson Combs, and what he was doing during this time period during the Civil War. I'm Stephen Combs, and my father is Glendon Combs. And then his father was Ruford Combs. And his father was Chester Combs. And Chester Combs' father was Meredith Combs. And Meredith Combs, his father was Andrew Jackson Combs. And that's who I'm talking about. But my grandfather, Andrew Jackson Combs, he fought in the state guards, in the Kentucky State Guards during the Civil War. And what they did was they tried to keep any northern or southern armies out of Kentucky. That Kentucky wanted to stay neutral. And they were very unsuccessful because a lot of Civil War battles took place in Kentucky, and a lot of them dropped out of the state guards and either joined the North or the South, whichever they felt compelled to fight for. And I believe that's what my ancestor Andrew Jackson Combs did. I'm unsure whether he fought for the North or South. I feel like he fought for the North, but I really don't know. All I know is that before he got married to Martha Reynolds Combs, he got married right before the Battle of Fredericksburg. So I know he went and fought in the Battle of Fredericksburg, but I don't know what side he was fighting for. But I feel like he fought for the North, but I'm uncertain of that. Well, here we go, and we're going to time travel to 1862. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to drive down the road, and we'll catch you in a few minutes. I feel fairly confident that this road existed in 1862. I'm sure it didn't look the way it does today. Somewhere along this route, there's a fence, and these girls wanted to sit on that fence and watch the Confederate Army march by. That's all they wanted to do. And when the Confederate Army seen them sitting there on that fence, someone yelled out, "Target practice," and they shot and killed those girls. And that was a way for them to announce their presence, that the Confederate Army was here, and not to mess with us. Because if they didn't care to kill them two innocent girls, they wouldn't care to shoot and kill you, you know. And they came through here and took cows, whatever they wanted, and they gave them vouchers that they would be paid back for after the war. But after they lost, you can only imagine what them vouchers were worth. And to all my conspiracy theory fans out there, there's a conspiracy theory that during this battle or before the battle, whatever, that they were afraid that the Union Army might capture their payroll. They put a bunch of money down inside a barrel of a cannon and buried the cannon somewhere, and because to the best of my knowledge, they never came back and got that cannon and dug it back up. So there might be some treasure hidden in Madison County. If you'll notice along this road, there's some hills, and it was told to me that some of these high-ranking officers got up on one of these hills and said there's no way they could shoot us from up here. And right after he said that, somebody shot him. When the Union and the Confederates fought, the Confederate officer told his troops to get down and let them shoot over top of them. And that's what they did. They hunkered down and the Union kept shooting. And one of the Union officers stood up and said, "I believe we got them all, men. It's a good thing, too, because we're completely out of ammunition." Well, the Confederates were just hunkered down. So they got up and really won the battle, because the Confederates wasn't out of ammunition. You take this battle was 160 years ago, and none of these trees that I'm looking at, none of them look like they're 160 years old. Take back then in 1862, when they had all that slave labor, probably both sides of this road was very manicured, because they had plenty of labor to keep it looking nice, you know. I seen on Facebook that George Washington, he owned slaves, and they had ice during the summer because they would send slaves out on the Potomac River to collect ice, so that they would have ice during the summer. They'd fill their ice house with ice that them slaves that went out on the Potomac River and collected. And you think today how easy it is just to go up to your refrigerator and get a cup of ice. Up here on the left, there's a farm where they do the reenactment of the Battle of Richmond. But that's not where it took place. It actually took place on the right side of the road, down here where Bluegrass Army Depot is. And I believe that's why the depot is located there, to help conserve that battlefield. That house there on the right, it looks like it's old enough to be a Civil War house, maybe. Right here on the right is the Bluegrass Army Depot. stop here at this church because this church was attacked during the Civil War and a cannonball went through it. And there's probably a historical marker that we can look at. Celebrating 170 years. That church was just 10 years in use when it was attacked. See what Mount Zion Church Field Hospital. See. On the day of the battle, August 30th, 1862, the temperature hovered near 100 degrees. As the battle raged, ambulances drawn by sweating horses raced into the churchyard, bringing more and more casualties to Mount Zion Church. By afternoon, this small churchyard was filled with men who were wounded, some dying, all awaiting medical attention. Inside the church, where the doctors struggled to keep up with the flow of wounded, it was almost unbearably hot. In the sweltering church, the doctors performed operation after operation, most of them amputations. The urgency of the battlefield and the state of medical science did not allow more sophisticated care. One Indiana soldier remembered seeing amputated arms and legs thrown from the south side rear window of this building to the yard outside. Local residents, many of them members of the congregation, brought food and drink to the doctors and wounded at the church. All day wagons came to the church, some left filled with wounded men who were taken to local homes where they could recuperate. Others carried the bodies of the dead to the Richmond City Cemetery for burial. Civil War medicine was appalling by our standards. 3 of 4 battlefield operations was an amputation. Though surgeons were vaguely aware that clean conditions decreased the rate of infection, they did not know to sterilize their equipment. Between operations, they often wiped their hands or equipment on their shirts or towels, spreading microbes from one patient to the next. The doctors were ill prepared. Dr. Bernard J.D. Irwin, medical director, Union Army of Kentucky, was charged with ensuring that each regiment had the medical officers and supplies that would be needed if the Army went into battle. The medical situation of the Army of Kentucky's regiments was grim. On his arrival in Lexington in late August 1862, Dr. Irwin found the medical corps as inexperienced as the men who were marching for battle. The few medical officers had neither medicines, instruments, ambulances, tents, or camp equipage to enable them to perform their duties. With 3 exceptions, the medical officers were inexperienced in service and had but vague ideas as to the extent or sphere of their duties. When the wounded arrived, they were quickly divided into 3 groups: mortally wounded, the slightly wounded, and those requiring medical attention. This scene from a Virginia battlefield was repeated at Mount Zion Church. I'm just going to walk all the way around it here, see if there's anything else to see. Well, there's an old bell up there. Ooh. Well, they got a free brochure you can get. Huh. Honey, I think we got one more stop to make. Up here on the right-hand side of the road, by Bluegrass Ordinance, there's some more signs that we can film. Just gonna let that car go on by. see that house there. That's from the Civil War days. I don't know if that house there is old enough to be from that time or not. I'm not sure about it. They've got it protected anyway. Here is these. I think these historic markers have something to do with the Battle of Richmond. We'll see. Daniel Boone's Trail from North Carolina to Kentucky, 1775, erected by the Kentucky Daughters of the American Revolution, 1915. Also near the site of Fort Estill, 1779 to 1782, built by Captain James Estill. Fort Estill, attacked by Wyandottes, March 20th, 1782. Mrs. Gathright and James Estill's slave, Monk, were captured, and Jenny Gass, daughter of David Gass, was killed. Monk's exaggeration of the number of men in the fort caused the Indians to depart. Captain Estill organized a company of 25 men, followed the Indians, and suffered what is known as Estill's defeat in the Battle of Little Mountain, March 22nd, 1782. In Montgomery County, Captain Estill and 9 of his men were killed. Both Indians and whites withdrew, the Indians suffering greater losses. Nicholas Proctor married Estill's widow, Captain Estill's mother, Monk, freed later by the Estills, and Cradlebaugh were buried at Estill Station. Established about 4 miles southeast of Richmond and east of this place in 1779-1780 by Colonel Samuel and Captain James Estill, it was noted for land locators, surveyors, horse hunters, travelers, and scouts. It commanded the hunting grounds on Silver Creek, Muddy Creek, and Station Camp. Some prominent inhabitants were James Estill and his slave Monk, Samuel Estill, George Robertson, Joseph and Nicholas Proctor, William Cradlebaugh, David Gass, Peter Hackett, John and Archibald Woods, David Lynch, Adam Caperton, John and Thomas Miller, and Green Clay. A little later, Colonel Estill established Estill Station and 2 miles east of the fort. This is just a map of Madison County. Okay. Battle of Richmond, Kentucky, August 29th through 30th, 1862. That's 160 years ago, because as of the making of this video, it is 2022. Confederates, 12,000 infantry, 4,000 cavalry. Federal, 7,000 infantry. Generals, Confederate, E. Kirby Smith. Federal, William Nelson, M.D. Manson. Losses, Confederate, 75 killed, 200 wounded. Federal, 206 killed, 844 wounded. 4,303 prisoners, many men escaped, 9 pieces of artillery, 10,000 stands of small arms, large quantity of supplies. So right there we got something from the Battle of Richmond. The men were thoroughly exhausted. The burning sun shone fiercely down while clouds of dust filled the air. Men were scattered around singly or in squads. Wounded men were straggling along or resting in shady places. Lieutenant Colonel James Cox. The Union line breaks. The Confederates destroyed the Union line at Duncannon Road. They hit Cruft's brigade with a rolling musket volley, reloaded, jumped the fence, and scattered his line. Manson's brigade fared no better. The 71st Indiana Infantry lost so many officers that it almost ceased to exist as an organized unit. The spent Union line crumbled and the Federal troops bolted toward Richmond. Civilian sightseers fleeing the battle were engulfed by the frenzied retreat, making a bad situation worse. The flying masses drifted up the road and through the fields in the direction of Richmond. General Cruft reported. General Manson and myself rode forward, endeavoring to stay the flight and panic in every way possible. Our respective staff officers and some of the field officers of the various commands nobly assisted in the hopeless task. It was late afternoon when the remnants of the demoralized Union Army regrouped on the south edge of Richmond in the in and near the cemetery. The Federals were badly rattled, but they were not ready to concede defeat just yet. Well, there you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed our traveling through time to 1862. I hope that you learned something today. And if you're from Madison County, it's nice to be remembered, to remember that you have a piece of history right in your very own backyard. Well, we'll catch you later. Bye.